On today's show, EuroBasket is surprisingly over for the entire Hawks organization. We'll get into what happened over the weekend, takeaways for Porzingis, Risacher, and more. It's all coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2050 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday evening into Monday here in early September. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. Football season is now here, and right now, if you are a new customer at FanDuel, bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out. Subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. So please like this video as you're watching it. Helps to spread the word. And we appreciate you being here as always. As you're listening to this, probably, I would say, on Monday. Some people might hear the show on Sunday evening late, but it's probably Monday for most of you. If that's the case, we are exactly 3 weeks away from the unofficial start of the season, which is Hawks Media Day. That's the media day around the league. There are a couple teams that can go early because of international stuff, but for the most part, the entire league opens for business 3 weeks from today, September 29th. It's Monday. And also, by the way, with that in mind, we are beginning this week, ramping up to our usual in-season cadence of 5-ish episodes per week on this feed. Pretty much never less than 4, could be 6 sometimes, could be 7 sometimes, 5 most of the time, etc. And busy. So if you are just joining us again, we appreciate you coming back to the podcast. Hopefully stick around heading into the season, throughout the entire season. But we have plenty of stuff in the backlog from the summer. Player capsules, plenty of guests, EuroBasket. And in fact, as we get into today's podcast, I was planning to cover pretty much every single EuroBasket game involving the Hawks from this point forward, because the knockout round began this weekend, kind of the winner go home section of EuroBasket. But spoiler alert, EuroBasket is now over for the Hawks as of Sunday evening. So before I talk about the runs for Porzingis and Risacher in the tournament overall, the biggest thing, the number one thing by a lot, that's the takeaway for me, is that all three guys, and that's Porzingis, Risacher, and Krejci, all three of them who played in this tournament, made it to the end without any apparent injury that we know about. That's always kind of the biggest thing. Teams are always holding their breath when it comes to international competitions. I know fans are as well. I joked with David Lee on the show last week, and listen to those episodes that were a lot of fun to talk to David on this podcast. I said on that pod that I know some Hawks fans were kind of almost rooting against the national teams for Porzingis, for Risacher, etc., and had them lose as fast as possible. And that point was kind of driven home again today when I was tweeting about Risacher losing on Sunday, and people were kind of celebrating, not because of Zach, but because they don't want Zach to keep playing and risk injury. I get all of that. I wouldn't go quite that far personally, because these guys still play basketball. Like, spoiler alert, guys get hurt in practices, guys get hurt in training sessions. Like, they don't just stop playing. There's always a little bit of risk. But I do understand the thought process for sure from a fan perspective of a team. And from a Hawks standpoint, I do believe that what happened at EuroBasket was an overall victory for the team. Like, the three guys who went had at least moderately successful runs, no injuries that we know about. That's the biggest thing, and we kind of get through that. If you missed it, by the way, I covered this a little bit last week, but Krejci, Czech Republic, were eliminated through the group stage. So V didn't shoot it great at EuroBasket as the best player on that team, but it was the best player on a bad team, honestly, and it was not really his fault. Kind of a bad setup for him. But nothing bad that I'm aware of for V. Like, it was totally fine, nothing great, but he made it through just fine. As for Porzingis and for Risacher, both guys played in the round of 16 this weekend and had actually, I would say, real chances to advance in the tournament as far as, all the way to the end, honestly. It's not exactly a field that has a sort of massive presumptive favorite like when the Olympics happen. The Americans have traditionally been the massive favorite to win the whole thing. There are favorites in this tournament, but it's not quite that kind of set up. We'll begin with Porzingis first on this kind of final-ish breakdown, at least from my own perspective on EuroBasket and the takeaways that are involved with the Hawks. Because, look, I'm viewing this through the prism of the Hawks, and I know most fans are as well. Porzingis was eliminated first on Saturday, so he kind of gets the first call on this podcast and just kind of wrap up the run for both guys. But he had 34 points and 19 rebounds in the round of 16 loss to Lithuania for Latvia. He was fantastic in the game. hit about a 30-footer at one point, showing his range. It's kind of uncanny for a player his size. Nothing new there, just a reminder of it. Had 2 blocks. One of them was just a reminder, honestly, to me and others that just how long he actually is as a rim protector. Just kind of swallowed up a layup attempt at the rim without too much effort. Just was right there, and just that length is massive. He was for me, it was consistently aggressive in the game on Saturday. Active for me on both ends of the floor as well. That is very encouraging for Porzingis. Not always like the most high motor guy in the world, but certainly was in a aggressive mode, and that was a positive. Overall, in the 6 games he played at EuroBasket, he averaged 20.2 points per game, 8.7 rebounds, 1.7 blocks. He shot 67% on twos. That's a great number there. He got to the line 8 times a game. That's a sky-high number in a EuroBasket competition where he wasn't playing that many minutes. Didn't shoot it that great from three-point range, but was still very, very efficient overall, and that's with getting the number 1 treatment defensively. He was the number 1 guy on that team by a lot. He missed his first 13 attempts from beyond the three-point arc in the tournament. Didn't make one until the 4th game, but was still efficient. And by the way, I know people were kind of worried about this that I saw. I kind of had to shrug a little bit and laugh. This is a guy who has shot 39% on about 900 attempts over the last 3 years in the NBA. I don't really care what he shoots in the EuroBasket. Obviously, if he had a long slump in the NBA, you start to worry a little bit. But I think his shooting is not really up for debate. Like, it's going to go in. What he shoots percentage-wise, there's always a little bit of variance there, even for the best shooters, what they're going to be able to put on film for a full season. But I trust the shooting. Not a concern for me at all with him. The biggest thing, though, for Porzingis, and I think even more so as we'll talk about Risacher in a second, Porzingis came in, as a reminder, this is a brand new Hawk, number 1. Number 2, last year, he did come back at the end of the season with Boston, but was never right. I talked to Noah Dalzell on this podcast, if you missed that, earlier this summer, who covered Boston when he was there, and she was talking about this as well. There was this mystery illness that he had where he was out for a while, he came back, it wasn't right, was out for a while longer, came back, and fans were mad at him basically in Boston about how poorly he played in the playoffs, but he was just never physically right. And it was a mystery. Like, we still don't know what the actual illness was. So that's kind of the backdrop here. Plus, this is a guy, and I'm not trying to be negative, but he has averaged 50.1 games played per season in his 10-year career. So he's missed 32 games per season on average. He's a durability risk. That's why he was available, at least in part why he was available for the price that the Hawks paid. Even with that, it was still a deal that I liked. But that's the backdrop of this. Obviously, he had not been full strength for a while, and still has not played with the Hawks yet. He's reported to the Hawks, talked to the Hawks guys, but never been in that Hawks uniform to date. So people that are only Hawks fans might not be super dialed in with him. So that's kind of the backdrop again. But the biggest thing, again, just for him in particular, even more than Risacher, is that he is healthy, and he really looked physically good to me. He moved well in the tournament. He didn't bounce off guys. Like he's definitely a long, wiry player. He's not like a huge, strong guy who moves people, but he looked athletic. He looked physically, fit and right, and like the way he wants to look. And that's the biggest thing. Also, he gave an interesting quote after the EuroBasket exit on Saturday to Christos Saltas, a well-known European reporter. He was actually, during the pandemic, was on like every Zoom forever. He was on a lot of Hawks Zooms then, just Christos. But he talks to Porzingis after the game. This is a long quote, but I want to read it to you. It's actually good context for Porzingis. Quote, "I feel like I had a pretty good build-up as the summer went. It is true there were still some days where I wasn't feeling perfect, and I'm still working my way back to have my gas tank like full. But as the tournament went on, I started feeling really good physically. I know I can push my body. I can push myself to go. Today was an example of that. I think it's just up from now. Overall, a great summer with my Latvian teammates and being back home." End quote. So if you want to be negative, you could say he didn't feel 100% right. But I would focus on the basically starting feeling really good physically as the tournament went along. He hadn't played a lot. Like that's something that I think people sometimes get lost with, is even in summer league is like this. This is that, and that's much different competition level than this. EuroBasket is high level. These guys care a lot about this. They're playing for their countries. It's physical. It's high demand basketball. But the biggest thing is no one has played like this kind of level other than qualifying games, which like they already happened, like they're friendlies. The guys who you care about in the NBA, the high-level players, Porzingis, Risacher for the Hawks, etc., none of these guys have played real minutes in real high-level games in a couple of months at least, probably at least 3 months. Porzingis was playing into May with Boston. That was 3.5 months ago. Like that's not the same. Plus, he was again not injured, but sick when he was playing. Risacher hadn't played in an NBA game or something like that in a long time. So it's a big jump up. So you're kind of ramping up a little bit here as the season gets closer. I think having this international competition closer to the season starting is probably good because they can kind of ramp up and then stay ramped up. Like now that Porzingis is done playing, he has 3 weeks till media day. He's not going to go like lay on a beach and do nothing for 3 weeks. I'm sure he'll rest some, but like you're kind of going to be in your game shape or at least something close to training camp shape now. So big picture, my biggest thing overall with all the guys, but in particular with Porzingis, given his history, given the recent history of him in Boston last year, was how does he look physically? He looked good to me. He made plays. He made shots. He was aggressive. He was a good passer in EuroBasket as well. I liked what I saw overall. You can't really expect him to look any better than that if you are the Hawks. And for me, he's a very, very good player. I'll talk about him a lot more over the next month plus until the season starts. But a huge weapon for the Hawks. And knock on wood that he stays healthy for this team because he certainly is a ceiling raiser of what the Hawks can be in 25-26. All right, more to come on the podcast, including Risacher, a breakdown of his EuroBasket experience, a mailbag question, and more in just one moment. The NFL season is finally here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, if you were a new customer at FanDuel, you can bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. FanDuel is great in so many ways, and one reason is that it fits however you like to bet across the sports betting landscape, whether it's player props or singing parlays, straight bets, future bets, even live betting as the action unfolds. It's all there for you at FanDuel. They make every game more exciting as it unfolds, whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your favorite lineups across the board. And they have every sport you can think of. That includes the NFL, college football, of course, the NBA, which we cover on this podcast all the time, baseball, hockey, golf, tennis. They have soccer, they have auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so many more. FanDuel is also quick, it's easy, and they're fast to pay out when you win, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays this fall. So the question is, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet and get $300 in bonus bets when you do that. Check it all out at FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app today. All right, we'll dive in now to Zaccharie Risacher, who was honestly the much more surprising exit over the weekend. So Porzingis is on this Latvian team that they're not bad at all. He's their best player by a lot, but they were not one of the favorites coming into the tournament in the way that France was. And Risacher, of course, is a younger guy on France, but part of that team, they were big favorites, like 15-point favorites at FanDuel. I saw that this morning before the game actually started on Sunday. They lost to the Republic of Georgia, led by actually an American, Kennard Baldwin, who's actually from the Barrow County area in the Atlanta suburbs. Led that team today, but a pretty huge upset, honestly. They were not alone. Serbia also lost in this tournament, surprisingly, to Finland. So it's been a wacky EuroBasket. If you're not just on the Hawks stuff, you're following the whole tournament. It's been a crazy couple of days in EuroBasket. But going back to Risacher, France losing was a big surprise. Like I was actually prepared to do this podcast as kind of the eulogy on Porzingis, and then, hey, a look ahead to what's going on with Risacher the rest of the tournament. But now it's over for everybody. As far as this game is concerned, Zach only shot 1 of 6 from 3. He was fine otherwise, 16 minutes of play. That'll be a theme that he did not play enough throughout this conversation. France, again, could have advanced to play Finland in the quarterfinal if they were able to win the game today. They just weren't able to do that. But overall, the run is over for Zach. Same as Porzingis, but he played 6 games overall, averaged 9.7 points, 4.2 rebounds, shot 48% from the field, 60% on twos is actually a good number there, 41.4% from 3. Took about twice as many threes as twos in the tournament, so certainly was much more of a specialist than he might be in the NBA, and only averaged 17.8 minutes per game in the tournament. That is probably my biggest issue here. He never played more than 24 minutes at any game during the 6th, and he was 7th on France's team in minutes per game. I find that quite silly, given the roster who was available for France. But actually, shout out to David Lee, our guest from last week, pulled these numbers on a per 36-minute basis. Zach averaged 19.6 points, 8.5 rebounds, 3.4 assists, and 2.5 stocks per 36 minutes. Now, he won't play that much all the time. That's a good idea of, like, on a per-minute basis, he was very effective and very efficient for France, even when we had a couple of middling shooting performances. So overall, takeaway perspective, I really enjoy watching Zach play basketball. I always have. even last year, even pre-draft, etc. It was good to see him playing and looking bigger and looking more physical. With Porzingis, it was an injury question, like how is he going to look after the illness? With Zach, it's like, okay, last year was 19, now he's 20. He's going to fill out. Everyone knows he has to fill out and get stronger and get more physical. And he looked to be more physical, not just in stature, although that was evident as well. I'm excited to see him in person to see how he actually looks like right there in front of me, but certainly looks to be a little bit thicker in a good way, muscle building wise, but also the way he was playing, more physically, more assertive. You love to see that from a young guy. I'm also ready to see him, quite frankly, play for a coach that's not the one on the French national team. By the way, that was also his coach as a French pro before the draft. So he kind of put him in a tiny box overall. Maybe it's like a status thing or a youth thing, because he was definitely the youngest guy on the team, I think, that was playing big minutes. But they very clearly thought Risacher was like in the right role, but like I thought he was much, much, much in a smaller role than he should have been, both in minutes and also in overall like usage on the floor. Like I won't go crazy on that. It's not like a Hawks thing, but France's guard play was like pretty bad the entire time, I thought. And the team like operates as if that's like their best strength. Basically, they don't have that mindset that it's like that's not what their strength is on this roster. They did, I think, positively let Risacher grab and go some, and because he was rebounding better, that was able to actually kind of fuel some of his efficiency and more of his productivity in the tournament. And from an on-court standpoint, the rebounding improvement was probably the biggest thing, other than just the physicality. It was like he really did rebound, and I need him to do that basically for the Hawks. That's been a theme that I talked about for a long time now, dating back to last year. He has to rebound at a higher level in the future. I'm not saying he can't, nor would I ever say that, but it was just something that he has to be able to do. I think the Hawks know that. I think he knows that. Being more physical will help with that, but it would unlock a ton for him in the future, as well as the Hawks in the future, if he can rebound at a high level, because that way you can actually play with the foursome in the future, maybe if he gets a little bit fooled out. Because look, there's been some conspiracy theories about this. We won't know until I see him in person. He might be taller now. Like he looks to be in some of these pictures like 6'10". Like he was already leaning that direction anyway. But if he's 6'10" and can actually put some muscle mass on and rebound at like a power forward, like at least a combo forward level, there's a lot of versatility with that in the future. Anyway, I would say overall, I thought he looked the way that I want him to look in EuroBasket. He was efficient. He shot it well. He shot the ball, by the way, very quickly and very efficiently. Overall, he attacked the rim more, a little bit less of the craft stuff at the rim, a little bit more like, using his length and physicality to go right at people or right through people versus having to go around and like do these like left-handed scoops and stuff like that. That stuff is useful to have, but being able to be more physical is definitely better overall if you can do it. I like that. I think he defended pretty well. Overall, I don't want to be like bang this home too much, but I would say I wish he played in a different situation. And I'm curious to see how the French national team looks like in a couple of years with Wemby, because they didn't have like all their guys like Gobert, Wemby, Batum. Those guys didn't play in this time around. But beyond that, he can't control that. Obviously, I think maybe in a couple of years when he's more like established in the NBA, maybe he'll get more respect at that level. But from a Hawks standpoint, he did what you want him to do. I actually think he might have a bigger role in Atlanta than he would have on his French national team. And look, he was probably a top 2 or 3 player on the roster, in my opinion. Like even right now, it's not even future projection. Even right now today was a top 3 player for me on that team, and he was 7th in minutes. I don't like that. But beyond that, it was a pretty good week for Zach. And again, looked healthy, looked bigger, and that's all systems go for the season as he kind of approaches. So that's all I have on EuroBasket. Obviously, I might have a guest on, talk more about it. I know Tyler Jones might come on the podcast. We might talk about that a little bit, what he saw at EuroBasket. But for the most part, it is over for the Hawks. I'll still be watching because I'm actually intrigued with high-level basketball to see how this thing unfolds. But from a coverage standpoint on the podcast, that's it for Risacher and for, of course, Veit and Porzingis. One mailbag question real quickly that I can answer quickly before we get to one more in a second comes from Hugo, actually. Hugo says, I just read that the Hawks only have 11 players under contract. How is that possible? Don't they have to have 15 players? I'm not sure what Hugo was reading, but I know what it's referring to, and it's an actually easy answer. So the Hawks have 11 players on fully guaranteed contracts. That might sound weird because I haven't talked about it that way necessarily, but there's a reason for that. They have 11 guys fully guaranteed. Then they have 2 players who are technically on non-guaranteed deals who basically have, barring a complete disaster, basically no chance of being cut. They are, in no order, Vit Krejci, who is on a non-guaranteed deal. He's actually guaranteed for about $1.5 million on a $2.35 million contract. Cutting him would save the Hawks very little money. He's a top 10 guy on their roster. They're not going to cut him. And the other one is Mo Gay, who they're not going to cut either. Mo is actually fully non-guaranteed because it's the third year of that deal that he signed post-draft. But it's for $2.2 million. It's a great bargain. Like, they have Vit and Mo making a combined $4.5 million this year. There's no reason why they would cut those guys, which is why I haven't talked about this really at all. But if you look at only the guaranteed contracts, yes, they only have 11 of those. 2, though, might as well be in Vit and Mo. That's 13. Then they have 2 who are on deals who actually could reasonably be cut. That's Caleb Houstan and N'Faly Dante. If you missed that, I talked about those guys quite a bit, including last week with David Lee, so I won't do that again now. But they have 13 guys who are going to be on the team, barring trade, and then they have 2 guys who could be cut if the Hawks wanted to, but that's hopefully an easy answer. Last thing, they do have to carry at least 14. So they won't have any trouble getting to 14, I'm sure, but barring a trade, we know who 13 of those 15, 14, whatever you want to say, are, and the other 2 spots, Houstan and Dante, are a little bit more in flux, but we'll get into that more, I promise you, over the next 3+ weeks as camp begins, etc. All right, one more mailbag question to get to in a second after a word from our partners. All right, question from Alec, who says, my question is, do you think it's viable for Jalen to start at the 3 and both KP and OO, that's Porzingis and Okongwu, to start at the 4 and the 5 with Zach coming off the bench? I don't normally get caught up in starting lineups and have been surprised on Hawks Twitter debating on KP and OO as the starter, while I think that JJ can play the 3 and Zach off the bench would be great. So this actually came from my Patreon. Just Alec for that. It's patreon.com/BT Rowland. Had a chat over the couple days ago now. And I thought it was good to kind of answer this in broader fashion than I was able to do there. Because also part of that was why I got a separate email that was very similar to this 2 days later, and then another DM that same day, all kind of in the same vein. So it was an interesting topic. I haven't done this a lot, so here we go to the answer. I will preface this by saying it is September 7th as I'm recording this podcast. I don't have the same confidence level on the intel stuff that I will have in 3 weeks. Because, for example, Quinn just goes dark this summer for the most part, and he's the biggest person that drives the decisions on the actual on-court stuff. So it's a little bit black boxy right now on the Hawks, but I still have my other intel sources and also informed previous talks with people, including Quinn and staff and all that stuff. So just a little bit of a caveat on everything. I get that on Net Nuggets podcast too. It's early, pre-camp. It's intel stuff's a little bit shakier just by nature. With that said, I would personally be quite surprised if Jalen started at the 3 with both centers on a regular basis. Now, if Risacher was hurt, I could see that happening a lot easier because they don't really have another 3. They have Dyson and Nickeil, who are for me, the backup 3s, even though one of them will start with the 2, it'll be Dyson. Nickeil was more of a 2 than a 3 positionally, but certainly could start there, will play there some. So I'm not saying that. I'm saying everybody healthy, I would be surprised if we saw Jalen start at the 3 for 2 main reasons. One of them is that I believe Jalen is a 4, and I believe that the Hawks also think that. Now, last year, Cleaning the Glass, a great site, had it as 98% of his minutes played at the 4. That's basically all of his minutes. That sounds right to me. The only time that I could see him playing the 3 last year was maybe a weird end-of-game lineup or something like that on defense or offense or whatever. With confidence, I will say this. Jalen Johnson has played more center as a professional basketball player than he has played small forward. One more time. He's played more center than small forward as a professional basketball player. That is objectively and clearly true. It became kind of a running joke, but he played center in the G League as a rookie. That happened. Not a ton, but some. He definitely played there. And even a little bit of center as a rookie in the NBA in brief time. And just to be very clear, they have more center depth. He won't play center unless it's crazy injuries or weird lineups. He's not going to play center either. But by the way, none of this is to say Jalen can't play the 3. I think he can play a little bit of 3. But the shooting is limited there. Even at the 4, he's not a great shooter. At the 3, he's a below average, strongly below average shooter at the 3 right now. Plus, some of his big positives, rebounding and stuff, they don't like play up too terribly well at the 3. Like he can play there obviously a little bit, but the idea that he's not a 4 is weird to me. I know he's not like the traditional, like 25 years ago, 260-pound power forward, but like he's like a very prototypical NBA power forward at this point. Throwing the rebounding. I know he's kind of skinny, but like he's strong enough, whatever. I'll leave it there for now. So the other thing is, so one thing again, Jalen is a 4. I think that, I believe the Hawks think that as well. So that's what they've said in the past. Their actions in the past said the same thing. Keep that in mind. The other part of this, the Hawks absolutely love Risacher. Now, that shouldn't surprise anyone. They drafted him with the number 1 overall pick a year ago. But they believe in him quite a lot. And I think with pretty good reason. I'm not someone last year, if you're new to the podcast, who was saying and banging on the table saying that Risacher had to start last year. I know that people thought this, but because it was the number 1 overall pick, it was like, oh, he has to start. Like, I never believed that, honestly. And I said as much on this podcast, but he did start the whole season. He more than held his own there. And all signs that I have seen or heard point to him starting there again. I think he earned that. I think by the end of the season, the second half of the season, he was like playing at a starter level. Early in the year, he wasn't a starting level player. But with Hunter getting hurt and they wanted him to be in that role and all that stuff, it was logical that he started. It was totally fine with me. But now I think he's actually the starting 3, like earning that spot. None of that's like he's a starting level player to me. So maybe if the Hawks came out and struggled early in the year, or if Zach struggled early in the year, maybe they changed the lineup or whatever. I'm not saying that all year long he's locked in, guaranteed to be in that spot. But I am saying I'd be surprised if it was not Risacher starting at the 3 on opening night. And I think, to go a half step further, I think they'd be more likely to start Dyson and Nickeil together than they would be to start Jalen at the 3. That's my informed speculation, I would say. I'm not reporting that. Like sometimes I will report stuff that I know to be true, that I've been told. No one's told me that. That's a reading between the lines for me. But I could be wrong. Maybe Quinn is gearing up for a way bigger change in style and construction of the lineups that I'm expecting or foreseeing. But just for the record, to say this plainly, I am projecting, like informed projection, Risacher at the 3, Jalen at the 4, and one of the centers at the 5. Like at some point, maybe we see a jumbo lineup with Jalen, Okongwu, Porzingis in a game. I think if you wanted to tell me that Jalen plays more minutes at the 3 overall next year, that's believable because he basically played none last year. But as far as starting primary looks, I think that's what, by the way, that's also what I would do. I would start Zach at the 3. I would start Jalen at the 4. And, you know, the 5 is more up for debate. I talked about that a little bit last week as well. I think Porzingis is my guess is on who starts. He's the better player, more established player, all that stuff. But regardless, Zach, Jalen, center would be what I would do, and I think what the team will do when we actually get there. All right, that's all I have on today's podcast. But if people have actually asked today, what's coming up now that EuroBasket is over for the Hawks? And the answer is that the next thing is Media Day, 3 weeks away from now. Again, that's Monday, September 29th. I'll be in the building for that. Then the first preseason game is October 6th, about a week later. Then beyond that, like the off-court stuff, Dyson extension talks will be a topic until it gets done or that it doesn't. And that's still got like 6 weeks left, 7 weeks left. Kobe Buffkin's 4th-year team option decision. Trey and Kristaps are both extension eligible. That's talking point, as is Mogay. Still have 2 guys, again, that I mentioned before, on non-guaranteed deals in training camp. So there's still stuff to talk about, like when we get to training camp, like camp battles, like who's the 9th man, who's the 8th man, who's the 10th man, all that kind of fun stuff. We'll be talking about it. I promise you all of that. Previews, betting markets. I will weigh in with my thoughts around the league. I'm planning to have some over-unders with Robbie Callan to inform the rest of the league. Talk about the Pelicans on the podcast because that's certainly a big topic with the draft pick out there. The Bucks will be interested to follow all year long. So no lack of things to talk about. I promise you that. There is no more live basketball involving the Hawks for a little while, but that's all right. We made it all the way to this point. We'll have more to come in the future. Keep it locked right here, and we'll take you all the way through to camp, into the season, and beyond. And we never stop on this podcast. Even in the dead of the offseason, we were always here. So please stay tuned. Please subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, We're also on YouTube, so please like the video as you're watching it now. Leave your comments, and of course, tell your friends about the podcast as well. Follow the show on X/Twitter at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland, and also my Patreon work is patreon.com/BT Rowland. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you all next time.